Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show, and very glad to welcome back former press secretary for number 45, and someone who has been fighting the good fight in media ever since. You may have seen him on Newsmax. Now you see him on his terms. The Sean Spicer Show is the name of the broadcast. Sean Spicer rejoins us. Hello, sir.
Hey, good to see you, Kevin.
Thanks for coming on. I'm very excited about the prospect, and I love to talk with you and Kaylee and Sarah and some of these people about the new kids on the block. And when Karine Jean-Pierre came into the White House, you were very kind and gave us some observations, but you were also hesitant to be critical. Karoline Leavitt, I would love to know your thoughts on how she has really taken the office by storm and kind of with no apologies. What do you think of her style?
Yeah, well, let me back up a little. I think Karine Jean-Pierre may go down in history as the worst press secretary ever.
That is not what you were willing to say when you came on 4 years ago.
Well, you know what? She's earned that. I mean, it was laughable, pathetic. I could go on.
Yeah.
You contrast this, and it's actually very similar to the overall arch of the Trump administration so far, which is that it's a massive contrast. A president who works, who we see every day, who we hear from every day, who's getting things done, putting points on the board, versus a president who we never actually would see sometimes for days on end. Same thing in the briefing room. Karine Jean-Pierre couldn't answer basic questions. She would carry around a binder, which probably caused massive back problems. It was so big. And in that binder weren't even the most basic answers. Right. She had no command of the issues. She had, by every stretch of the imagination, no access to the Oval Office. So that when she talked about the president, she hadn't seen him probably in days in most cases. The opposite's true with Karoline. She comes in, she has a command of the issues, she has a presence there, she has clear access to the president, which is your job, to speak in lieu of the principal. And I think she's doing an absolutely phenomenal job, not just from the podium, but the other reforms that she's ushering in to make the White House more accessible, more transparent. It's fantastic what she's done, and you know, I give her all the credit in the world for how she's approaching this job.
Well, and I want to zero down on that a second, because the Pentagon made some waves when they kicked out NBC, NPR, Politico, and there was one other in there, I don't remember, but replaced them with the New York Times, replaced them with the New York Post, Huffington Post, Breitbart, and there was one other. I'm drawing a blank. But the idea that the old guard wasn't just going to get their press nooks just because they've always had them. This seems to be kind of a executive branch wide kind of philosophy that I don't know if Karoline's the one that's kind of instituting that across the board, but it certainly does seem to be taking place in different cabinet level press positions, and I think that's really healthy for the debate of the news of the day. No?
Yeah, let's just be clear though on a couple things. Let's take the DoD changes that you mentioned. This is about workspace, not access. They still have their badges; they can still go, but they had dominated. They had been for decades taking up space and not allowing anyone else in. And Pete Hegseth and the team over there, who I know fairly well, Sean Parnell and another buddy of mine named John Elliott are the head of public affairs over there. They're rotating. They created a rotational basis, which said NBC, Politico, Washington Post, New York Times, you guys don't get it all forever for nothing. Like, it's time to rotate you, so you still get your access. You can still cover us, but you don't get to have a monopoly on all the space so that no one else can have any. So I think this is a healthy thing. It's a rotation. And then on the briefing room, the opposite's true. I mean, Karoline is opening up the briefing room, giving more people, and this is something that she and I talked about extensively prior to Inauguration Day, is we believe in the First Amendment. The thing that's interesting, Kevin, that no one picked up on because no one wanted to, because they're selfish, is when Karine Jean-Pierre took away 400, we call hard passes, from independent journalists to get into the White House, none of them said a peep, because ABC, CBS, they don't want it diluted. They want to make sure that they can toe a line and that everything that you see, read, and hear is dictated by them. The more people that see the same events and have a different perspective is not good for them. They want a monopoly on that. They want you to believe that everything President Trump says and does is horrible and bad. and that they don't want anyone else to show you the other side of what he's doing, why it's effective, why it's making us a better, stronger, more prosperous country. So they didn't. So despite all of them wrapping themselves in the First Amendment and media access and whatever, at the end of the day, when it really push came to shove, they said nothing. They were complicit, and that's why I love what Caroline's doing. She's additive. She's saying, "Hey, you guys stay, but I'm going to bring in more voices. I'm going to bring in different perspectives." And the idea that some of these guys might actually have a thought that would make them realize that there could be something different. And you recall when I was press secretary, I brought in Skype seats. I brought in reporters. Not just reporters, but admittedly talk show hosts from around the country that couldn't make or didn't want to come to Washington, D.C., but have a constituency or audience, much like you do, that might have an issue that isn't getting addressed in the White House because of the pervasive Beltway mentality that exists there.
I was favorably blessed to be on one of those Skype calls. And
there you go.
Yeah, I thought it was, and I'm hoping that that's what Caroline's leaning towards as well, because I don't think just everybody in the D.C., geography has the best insight on all the questions.
Oh, absolutely not. But
asked.
She's been bringing in other voices. She brought in Sage Steele the other day.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other independent, ruthless podcasts. Yeah, they're here in D.C. But
did Sean Spicer apply for a credential? I want to know that for sure.
Yes, I'm putting in for credentials. I don't want to necessarily sit in that seat because I don't really care where I sit, and I'm not.
Right.
But not that I would turn it down. I probably should say to her, I'd love the seat at some point. Just because it guarantees you.
How wild it would be to see Sean Spicer in the front row asking Caroline Leavitt a question.
Right. No. Well, I did go to a previous press briefing and ask President Trump one. So, maybe it's time that I did that.
Let's turn the corner just a little bit. The rate at which, and you can put on your other hat now, the rate at which the administration is moving ahead with the audit basically of everything involving American government. This is one of the most brilliant things an administration has ever done.
And the problem is that it's being exposed, and and Democrats, I think, by and large, were hoping to keep this covered up for years, and didn't want anyone to expose this. And so I hope they do, because the American people, this isn't conservative or liberal or Democrat or Republican.
Right.
So much of what President Trump's doing is just common sense, Kevin.
Totally is. And Sean Spicer, we appreciate your time and insight on all of it. Thank you for fighting the good fight, and thank you for being back with us.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.